so shy to ask questions. I don't think there are bad questions to ask. A lot is happening, so I will try to answer as best as I can. And it might also be more interesting if we actually have a discussion rather than you have me talking. It might get boring at some point. So what I will talk about, I will talk a little bit about where we are globally speaking in terms of the need for protection, and then how it looks in the UK. So what we do in terms of the numbers, like what is the need and how we are responding to this global need. Then I will briefly talk about the organization for those of you who don't know what Refugee Council does. Maybe there are some services you would be interested to access. And then I will specifically talk about our advocacy and campaigns work. Because that's the team I'm working in at the Refugee Council, so I work in our advocacy and engagement team. So I don't work, unfortunately, directly with people, like I don't work in our services. What we do as a team, and I will talk about this a little bit once we get to the slide, is to try to bring people together, and that's why I'm here today, and think how, with the collective power we have, how we can change the situation for better. Because things are changing, and I think compared to some European countries, UK is not the worst place to seek asylum and get protection, but it's far from being where it should be, and there are so many things that needs to be done. And unfortunately, you are the experts because you have the experience of going through the process. And we as a team, as an organization, and me personally, I'm really so curious and actually inspired to engage with you and think how we can work together to create better change. So yeah, I will start now, but if you have any questions, please feel free to just interrupt me. So 1951, this is when the United Nations created the Refugee Convention. It was the first legislation really dedicated to help people who are forced to flee and seek protection because they are escaping war, persecution, violence, discrimination. And as a result and response to the UN Refugee Convention, Refugee Council was established as an organization. So we are quite an old organization, and we've, from the beginning, always worked with refugees, people who are seeking asylum, and people who are refused asylum. You maybe notice that I'm not saying asylum seeker, and the reason I'm not saying asylum seeker, or I try to, you might correct me if I get it wrong, is because we are humans first, and it's really important, and that's what we try to do when we speak publicly, when we speak with people who are making decisions. We say people seeking asylum, people with refugee status or refugees. But when you say asylum seekers, it sounds a bit empty. So that's why we try to also influence change by using a slightly different language. So for 68 years, we've been working directly with the groups of people I've mentioned, including those who are refused asylum, became appeal rights exhausted, and are preparing for the submissions, fresh claims. So what we do, we have integration services, resettlement services, therapeutic, children services, and destitution and access to health services. So briefly speaking, what they do, our integration service is for those who got protection status in the UK, so those who are already refugees or have humanitarian protection or discretionary leave. So we help them to find themselves in this new reality. So we don't do immigration advice, but we help with housing, welfare benefits, and when I say housing, it's not just social housing, it's help with securing deposits. Maybe some people are able to rent privately, so we have a special scheme when we help to put landlords with potential tenants. And just basically we say to landlords, you shouldn't be scared from renting a house to refugees. It might be more difficult for them to put the deposit in, and that's are the things we are trying to help, because there are barriers for people otherwise. We help with language classes, with employment. We have some interesting projects for medical internally displaced, so we call them EDPs. It's higher, it's over 40 million than those people who cross the border to become a refugee. And it just shows that it's not like people want to come to Europe, that's what they want to do because they are looking for a job or because they are economic migrants. no, it really shows that people have desperate need to seek protection, and they just go to where it is closest to where their homes is, because they hope to be back. They are not making these journeys to, get better life in terms of more social security. It's all about seeking protection. So it's something really quite important to think about. So we see the number globally is really high, but what we do as a country, how are we responding to this great need that we are facing? And I would say we are responding quite poorly. We are not doing as much as we should be doing. So we only had over 26,000 applications made in the UK in the last 12 months. So Home Office is also producing statistics every 3 months. So the latest batch of statistics they released was in May this year. So when I say last 12 months, it's from May going back 12 months. It is a tiny number. We only get 5% of all new asylum applications in Europe. So obviously we should be doing more. And as unfortunately you had the unlikely pleasure to experience it, the UK asylum system is very tough. And only 39% of initial asylum claims made to the Home Office resulting in granted protection. It could be refugee status, humanitarian protection, or discretionary leave. So that's a really tiny proportion when we think about the need for protection being so great globally. And people are very often refused when they have strong claims to get protection in the UK. And then, of course, fortunately, still we have the appeals process, so we have independent courts and tribunals. And then the initial decisions to refuse that the Home Office made are overturned quite often by the tribunals, and this rate stands at 39%. And that's quite shocking because it means that in 39% of asylum cases, the Home Office made the wrong decision and refused someone who should be getting protection. And that's a really worrying trend that we see, unfortunately. And again, this number also tends to go up. So yeah, it's not a very pretty picture, but it means that there is just work that needs to be done, that we have to come together, that we have to mobilize ourselves and share the experiences of those people who are seeking protection, because it's really important for the decision makers to know what people are going through and the impact of the asylum process on individuals. It is not just about numbers, but it's about living, breathing human beings and the impact it has on their lives. So as an organization, I will go really quickly because these are just, to give you the scale of work that we do. It's in our impact report. You can read it online. We see, like, year on year, we just see more people needing support. So fortunately, we are able for now to expand our services to try to meet the needs that there is. But there's very little support coming from the government. And a lot of work that we have to do is actually a result of the government not having policies or systems in place that are supporting people as they should be supporting, and it's NGOs picking up the pieces. So that's, again, a trend that is likely to continue. Do you have any questions so far? Anything you would like to comment? Yeah.
Thank you so much. So far, from what you just discussed and shared with us, I have a few questions.
Yeah, please.
I don't think I would want you to ask more than two. If I have time, I will ask more than two, but I have four. Anyway, my first is, do you have specific organizations that you work with? Because I recently visited, there was an event last week, since it was Refugee Week. There was an event at Grow Tottenham. Yeah, and I happened to meet an organization called Consonant.
Oh yes.
It's Consonant. It does a variety of things like helping refugees, and interestingly, these guys provide so many things that are free. And among them, they provide English lessons. Yeah, they do provide career and business advice. Reached with this, there were rumors, because we haven't gripped them yet, that they're working on a law that's going to allow refugees to work after guys have you've gone to the Home Office and then you're granted to work after that. So, since you're now working with refugees and you're dealing with approaches, how far do you think are the guys working on it? Where have they reached, and is it going to begin with us, or will we wait for years and years?
Yeah. That's a really good question. So it's all correct what you said. There is a campaign called Lift the Ban happening at the moment, and maybe you've heard. And that's again a campaign that was started by several NGOs, and we are also part of this campaign. And as you correctly said, the idea is to allow people who are in the asylum process to work after 6 months. If for 6 months there was no decision made on their asylum claim, that they are allowed to work. So at the moment you can't work as a person seeking asylum if you're waiting 12 months for a decision, but the work you can engage with is restricted to something called shortage occupation list. So it is a list that the Home Office is using for tier visas. So for the employment visa, someone is coming here to work from outside of the European Union. And it is a ridiculous list. And the reason it is ridiculous, because it limits what types of jobs you can do. And the jobs there are like nuclear physician, professional ballerina. So it's just like completely absurd, because you say to people, yes, after 12 months you can apply, and we will give you right to work if you've been waiting on a decision on your claim, and delay is not because of you, it's because we are just so slow, which is usually the case. But then even if you get permission to work, it is really restricted to these extreme professions that I think hardly anyone across society is able to work in. So that's just completely pointless. So this whole campaign, the idea is, when you claim asylum, you are on asylum support, you get so little money, that's just ridiculous. And people should be allowed to work. There's no reason why they shouldn't, so we are advocating for allowing people to work after 6 months. And whether this will change is a tricky question, because it's not something that government. So our current government is quite right-wing and quite hostile to refugee asylum-related issues, and they don't like this idea, but we try to influence them. So if any change is likely to happen, it will not be immediate change. There is, and I don't want to go into too much detail because I don't want to bore you to death, but there is something happening in Parliament at the moment. We have something called white paper, and it's part of the legislative process. So basically, when you introduce a law, when you introduce a bill in Parliament, you usually have white paper before. And white paper is a document that explains what this new bill, what this new law will be about. And what we are trying to do, we are trying to use this consultation process on the white paper to influence the government to change the law and allow people who are seeking asylum to work after 6 months, and that this work is not restricted to jobs on the shortage occupation list. So we try to do it. There is an ongoing campaign. If this is something you are interested in, you can participate, you can share your experience, but it's not an easy one.
In case you want to know what you want to do later, after you granted asylum, or what you want to do in UK, or expand your knowledge in business or any aspect to do with your work experience. So they do that, and then they provide free computer lessons or classes. So they give free health programs and services. So I got in touch with them, and I felt like they're hopeful. So my question goes back to you: that do you deal with each organization that is related to refugee work, or you deal with specific ones? Because if you deal with such like Consonant, I will feel free to share the email, and whoever wants or feels free, you can grant register with those guys, because they are doing it freely and they're helping refugees.
Yeah.
So the email is, if you don't mind, it is hello, HELLO, at consonant.org.uk. And if you can't visit them, they're located in North London. You can just Google out Grow Tottenham, just opposite that Grow Tottenham, that's where they are, and that's where their offices are. My second is, you answer that later? Or,
Yeah,
or
how you
later?
prefer? Should I just answer as you go on?
Yeah.
So yeah, they are a fantastic charity and we work with them. And the way that we work as charities, as NGOs, we are all independent. We all provide advice for free.
Yeah.
So it's like goes across the board. It's like the principle, because when you are, say you are a charity, that's if someone asks you, offers you help and then asks you to pay, run away. Don't go there. So, and they are fantastic. We work with them. Consonant was created as a merge of two organizations. Those organizations we've heard about, Asylum Aid. So they've merged with Migrants Resource Center, and Consonant was created, and they are fantastic. So if you have any questions, if you need support, they can provide holistic support. So they are a good place to go, definitely. And we work together with them and with others. Yeah, we would sometimes refer clients between finishing in 2020, and we were pushing the government along with other organizations that we continue with resettlement programs, because as I said before, the needs to support people is so great. Over, such a great number of people, 70 million people, like needing support and needing protection. We should be doing more as a country. And government agreed to continue with resettlement programs beyond 2020, which is a huge success. So information like this we try to share through the newsletter and campaigns that we were discussing what is happening. Joining is free, anyone can join. You just go to our website, sign up, and you get updates from us every 3 months, every 4 months. So it's not, it's not like we are bombarding you with information. And you can be in contact with me if you have any questions. So I've mentioned these two campaigns that we are doing. This was about rights to work, so that's this parliamentary process I've mentioned. And obviously, I think for me, the most important question I would like to leave you with is, how would you like to contribute? How would you like to be part of all these processes that maybe look complicated, maybe look a bit scary, but if you feel that this is something you would like to be engaging with more, then I would be really happy to work with you and think how we can bring the experience you have and how we can talk about specifically, I think, rights of people who are LGBTQI and are claiming asylum in this country. I have to say that what we are looking at the moment with APPG on refugees, the chair of the APPG, she's quite interested in LGBTQI claims based, those claims, asylum claims based on sexual orientation and gender identity, because she recognizes that the burden of proof is so high for these cases. And we were talking with Abby a little bit about today before I started speaking with you about the credibility, about how difficult it is for people to, talk about very personal experiences to the Home Office, whose approach is to just refuse as many people as possible. It does not create a framework for people to be able to talk about their experiences. So that's like one of the issues we are looking into. And I know you also had Moira at one of the meetings talking about her fantastic research. So we are looking and thinking how to bring all these different elements together so we can talk about rights of different groups and try to explain to decision makers that they are not really doing things as they should be doing. So yeah, any ideas you have now or in the future, or any questions, I would be happy now to hear from you. And thank you so much for being so patient and for listening to what I was saying. Okay, yeah.
Hi, thank you so much. I mentioned about family reunion. My question is, do you know how long it takes? Because apparently, 3 months ago, decisions were made in South Africa, but now they have sent them to be made in here. Is it Sheffield? So do you know how long it takes? Because before it was 2 months when the decision were made in South Africa, but now I think because they are refusing everybody, most of the applications are being refused. So the decisions are being sent back to UK. So do you know how long it takes?
To be honest, I don't know the time frame, and you're asking about asylum claims, I understand.
know.
Yeah.
Oh, asylum, sorry.
Yeah. Is that
Family reunion, no.
family reunion? Oh, I see. It's difficult to tell. So there is this, and I don't want to get too technical. There will be a report published very soon in the next month. Also.
Hold our meeting every Saturday, which is quite unusual with other groups around and support each other. So I'm coming back to how we can contribute, because I think that is the most important thing for me. I'm talking now about me, Martin. I've seen a lot of people doing presentation here for us, and once it's done, I mean, after that there's not like any follow-up, there's nothing like getting engaged and things like that. So I feel a bit like left behind, or it was just we just create that space for nothing. So I want to, I'm still under the asylum process, so I'll go back to what concerns me really. And I'm still concerned with this issue of cultural diversity with the Africans, and it holds with the band as the Black African minority ethnicity. I believe for all the discussion I've had with other people around here, we have that door of cultural diversity when it comes to the Home Office. It means because the Home Office wants us to integrate easily here in the UK and live freely and be open, they think being open means to embrace the white culture of the LGBT or the gay side of it. While as an African, I have my culture also, which obviously I don't want to kick it off.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think if it's possible to, like, I don't know, but it's just a proposal, to start by how to contribute, to start like trying to let the Home Office know that Black Africans have their own culture, maybe their own way of dressing, maybe their own way of talking, maybe their own way of doing things, which might not be the same as the white British LGBT people.
Yes.
It will be a good contribution for us, because when we talk of credibility, and obviously you have a group of people here, and if I would say like what I've experienced is like people expect us to dress differently. I believe to maybe have rainbow clothes everywhere. I mean things like that, which we don't have any problem with that one, obviously. But it is not just we. We don't just want to go out of. I mean, I left my country because of persecution, because I couldn't live what I want to live. But I don't want to get here and still be stuck in the British way of living. You know, that wouldn't be me.